Elliotte Friedman joins us for the latest around the NHL. I'll start with this, Elliot. You know, Weeksy has made the breaking news video format quite a thing online. Should we expect you to follow suit at any point?
No, I don't believe in stealing people's shtick. Once Weeksy has established that as his own, it's like a comedian stealing each other's acts, right? I don't believe in doing that. I'll just go with the messy hair and the bad beards.
That is your thing.
You've locked that down. Locked that down.
That's your turf. All right, well, let's talk about Weeksy's latest breaking news video talking about Rick Bowness and the Dallas Stars parting ways. What can you tell us about how they came to that decision? And does Rick Bowness want to coach somewhere else? What do you make of his future?
Well, I'll answer your second question first. I do believe he is potentially interested in coaching elsewhere. I don't know how much he's going to really go and chase other things, but if people look at the job he's done in Dallas and say, we'd like to talk to you, I think he's going to listen to it. Initially, I thought, Jackie, that he would be retiring, and I've been told that is not correct. He is not retired, and he will listen if people are interested in talking to him about potentially coaching again. This was a challenging year in Dallas. I think they gave Calgary all they could handle in the second round, in the first round, and it came down to one shot. But there was a time this year where the Stars were really concerned about where they were going, and at the All-Star break, they did consider a coaching change. Now, obviously, that didn't happen, but I think with Bowness' contract being up, they just decided it was time to go in a different direction. I think Bowness was okay with that. But I do think he's not officially retired. I think he will listen if something comes to his plate over the next couple of weeks.
Elliot, let me just ask you about the Dallas Stars situation moving forward. Who is the type of guy or the type of coach they're looking for? Because there's so many really very qualified guys on the list.
I was talking to one GM who's hiring right now, EJ, and he told me, if you look at it, every team could turn over their head coach and there'd still be candidates out there that people would consider looking at. Like there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people who were former NHL coaches. You've got a list right there. There's a lot of people who are up and comers, assistant coaches now, AHL coaches. I think there are some teams that are going to look at least overseas to broaden their horizons. There's a lot of good names out there, a lot of good names. Now, the one thing I'm hearing a lot of is that if you take a look at some of the people who are having success right now, there's Daryl Sutter, there's Gerard Gallant, there's Craig Berube. There's a lot of coaches out there who are a little bit older, who are a little bit old school, but they understand how to mesh some of the new school with the demanding nature of the old school. And I think old school is making a little bit of a comeback. And that's why I think you're going to see some coaches that have been NHL head coaches before and are available right now. You just showed a whole list of them out there. And those coaches are going to have interest. And I think it's because they're looking at some of the people who are being successful right now, and they're saying, look, you can be old school and you can still be successful, providing you understand what lines can't be crossed and you also are willing to listen to some new ideas. And I think those coaches are going to have a lot of people behind them.
And one coach that is certainly in high demand, according to reports, is Barry Trotz, former coach of the New York Islanders, won a Stanley Cup with the Washington Capitals. What is the latest on the Barry Trotz front?
Well, there were reports that he was going to interview in Philadelphia today, Jackie. Those were premature. He did not interview there today, but he is going to interview with the Flyers. And I do think the Flyers are very serious about Barry Trotz. And as history has proven, if the Flyers are very serious about someone, it's not often that they don't get their individual. I think, I wonder if it's going to come down to like Marlon Brando in The Godfather. They're going to make him an offer he can't refuse. I think Barry Trotz has a lot to choose from here. There's Winnipeg. I still think Vegas is going to talk to him, and I still wouldn't be surprised if Detroit and Chicago are among the teams that talk to him. And then there's also the possibility now of a team like Dallas. I think he's got a lot of leverage. I think he's going to call his shot. The other thing, too, is I do think he had considered, is it time to take a break from coaching? Or does he want a plan where he coaches for a couple of years and then moves into management? If he wants to go into management now, I think there's a possibility that could be Nashville. I don't think Nashville is going to bring him in as someone was like looking over, John Hines' shadow. I think the Predators are very content with John Hines, which is why they extended him. But I think Barry Trotz is going to have a lot of options, and he's going to have a lot of ability to pick kind of the way he wants to go. Is it management? Is it coaching? Is it going to be coaching into management? And I think he's going to speak to everybody and kind of figure out where he wants. But I think he's going to have a ton of options. And I think there are going to be some teams who wait to see what does Barry Trotz decide to do.
Elliot, how about the Leafs? I mean, we've heard from their management group this week, and we've heard these rumors about them maybe looking to deal for John Gibson in Anaheim. Now, in the past, they made a nice trade for a goaltender with the Ducks years ago to get Freddie Anderson. That worked out pretty well for them. I mean, is that a serious thing? Because John Gibson is such a talented guy, but Anaheim is on a little bit of a different track right now. What do you make of that discussion?
Well, what I make, EJ, is that John Gibson and the Toronto Maple Leafs are a little bit like a high school romance that has failed to click. At one time, there's been one side interested, and at one time, there's been another side interested, but maybe the timing is bad, or someone else is in the picture, or someone isn't fully committed, and it doesn't happen. But that doesn't mean it won't happen. And what I would say is this. I think at times, and I don't think it's happened under Pat Verbeek as far as I know, but when Bob Murray was GM of the Ducks, I think there were times that the Ducks and the Maple Leafs talked about John Gibson. And I don't think it ever got close. I think it was talked about, and I just think for whatever reason it didn't occur. I do think that the Maple Leafs are going to consider a bold move or two this offseason, probably one. I think whatever they say publicly, they realize they can't run it back the exact same way. I do think if they don't sign Jack Campbell, a goaltender is going to be on their radar, an upgrade, and I do think John Gibson fits that bill. I also think Anaheim sees with its timeline that John Gibson might not make sense for them. And if there is interest, they will seriously look at it. So I think it's possible. I wouldn't want to put the percentage chances on it happen, but maybe this high school romance will finally occur.
I love the comp. Yeah. Great comp.
There's always somebody else in the mix to mess it up.
You know, when you're young, things are complicated, right? Things
quickly.
are complicated. Yeah. But, you answered my next question, which was, do you buy what management had to say this week, that they are going to run it back? They believe in this team. They made it sound like there really wasn't going to be many major changes. So I'll ask you this. Jack Campbell is a free agent. What do you expect he is hoping to sign for? Like, what is a Jack Campbell worth in this market?
Well, I think the thing is, like the last couple of years, there were some times there were a ton of goalies out there, and this time I don't think there are. And the other thing that's happening, Jackie, is if you take a look at it, how many true stud number ones exist in the NHL anymore? Like, there's not a ton, and a lot of it is because teams are saying, our number one guy now, like the days of the number one goaltender playing 65, 70 games, those days are over. Like, we're going into the days now of 45, 37, 50, 32, and maybe 55, 27. I think we're seeing a lot of tandems or 1 and 2s where you don't see the number one guy play as much. And I think that makes someone like Campbell even more valuable. I heard at the beginning of the year this year, the Maple Leafs offered Campbell 3 years in the $2.75 million range. And I heard that Campbell countered, much higher. Or just said that wasn't going to do it. So I think his market value is higher than where they tried to do it at the beginning of the year. I think they do believe in Campbell as a goalie. I think they really believe that he wasn't the reason they lost this year, which is I agree with 100%. I just think it comes down to, can the two sides here find a number that makes sense? And I think it's been a real challenge at different points of the season.
All right, while we're talking about goalies, how about Marc-Andre Fleury? Finishes the season in Minnesota. He's a free agent. Where does he end up?
I see the two most likely possibilities, EJ, I see are Minnesota and Pittsburgh. Obviously, he said he'd be happy to stay in Minnesota, and they've indicated they'd like to keep him. But I also do believe he's kept an eye towards the Pittsburgh Penguins and finishing his career where it started. Pittsburgh will have an opening there this year. As we all know, the Washington Capitals made a big pitch for Marc-Andre Fleury this season. And one of the reasons it didn't happen, I believe, is because Fleury couldn't wrap his head around that idea, being a Penguin for so long. And I think there was some concern that if he went to Washington, maybe he couldn't go to Pittsburgh next season. I think Fleury has always had a reunion in Pittsburgh and finishing his career there on his mind. And so I would say Minnesota and Pittsburgh would be my top 2 destinations. Obviously, something could change. But as you asked me today, that's where I'm going.
That's
what a
all we
story.
could ask.
That's
all
we
could ask.
The Flower returning to Pittsburgh would be something
Fleury
else.
and Jarry might be a nice duo.
Yeah.
As Elliot brings up, I mean, it's so true. Vasilevsky is kind of almost the only guy that plays 65 games anymore. So interesting.
We'll see how many Igor plays next year.
Yeah,
he could be another one. But before we let you go, since we're talking about Pittsburgh and the potential for Fleury to go back there, they've got a couple other big names that they got to figure out in Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang. Is there a situation where Pittsburgh can hang on to both of these players?
I think it's going to be really challenging, Jackie. I do. I just think that, now we're in the real crunch time, and now we're going to get serious. Now, Rob Rossi had a report this week that the 2 guys were offered 3 times $5 million deals. Malkin, I'm not here to argue with Rob. I can just tell you with what I heard. Malkin, I heard there was a 3-year deal on the table that would tie him in with Crosby to the end of their Penguins tenures, or at least for now, under Crosby's current contract. But I heard that with Malkin, the money that the Penguins were offering and what Malkin was looking for, they weren't even close. I don't know what those were. I just heard they were not. The quote that I was given was they were not in the same universe. Ooh. So that's something they have to figure out. Letang, I did hear there was a 4-year deal on the table at some point. His current average annual value is 7.25. I heard it was not there, but I heard it was not too far away. I'm not sure that that's going to be enough. Letang said this week he made a deal with Ron Hextall and wouldn't talk about his contract. But that's what I'd heard the number was, 4 at something under 7.25, not too far, but not exactly there. I do think that, I don't know if I would handicap them, but I do think the Penguins want to see if they can try to keep Letang in particular.
Well, if they can't keep both Letang and Malkin, it's going to be the end of an era. Malkin, Letang, Crosby spent 16 years together, the longest tenured trio of teammates in NHL history. It's pretty crazy to think about. Should be an interesting offseason. Elliot, thank you for this. We love having you on. Keep up the great work on Sportsnet.
All right, thanks very much. And by the way, I should add that someone did say to me this week, if the Penguins can't re-sign those guys, they're going to be aggressive. So another GM said, I hope they re-sign them because I don't need the competition.
Understandably so. Thanks, Elliot.
Take care, guys.